The icy wind swept through the narrow streets, chasing dry leaves across the cracked sidewalk. The sun had slipped behind the low buildings of the small town, plunging everything into a grayish light. The streetlights flickered on weakly, their glow struggling against the cold dusk air. Megan, an exhausted waitress, tightened her scarf as she left the diner after a double shift. With sore feet and the smell of grilled onions clinging to her apron, she held a paper bag containing her dinner, a cheese and turkey sandwich, still warm. As she turned the corner of Maple and 6th, a figure caught her eye, a little girl, sitting on the sidewalk, her knees drawn up, tangled curls framing a pale, dirty face. About 4 years old, she wore an oversized coat, ill-suited for the cold. Megan stopped. The girl remained still. Kneeling gently, she asked, "Are you lost, sweetheart?" The little girl lifted her tired green eyes, her chapped lips whispering, "I'm waiting. Mommy went away. She said she'd be back, but she's not here." Megan felt her heart tighten. How long had she been there? "I'm not supposed to move," the girl added. "I've been good." Megan scanned the deserted street. No adults, no signs of life. Her stomach growled, but she opened the bag, broke the sandwich, and offered 2/3 to the little one. "Here, you look hungrier than I am." Hesitant, the girl, named Sophie, took the piece, holding it like a treasure. She bit into it, her eyes closing in a sigh of gratitude. "I'm Megan," the waitress said, sitting beside her. Sophie ate in silence, clutching the sandwich. Megan felt the weight of her own life, unpaid bills, second-hand clothes, long days, but nothing weighed as heavily as the exhaustion in Sophie's eyes. As night fell, Megan wrapped her scarf around the child's frail shoulders. "Thank you," Sophie murmured. Megan stayed on the cold sidewalk for nearly an hour with Sophie, the sandwich finished, but the child remained silent, huddled against her. Sophie's head occasionally rested on her arm, suddenly straightening as if she feared falling asleep. "Do you know your mommy's number?" Megan asked gently. Sophie shook her head. "And where do you live?" Another negative shake, her lip trembling. "She said to wait, to be good, that she would come back," Sophie murmured. Megan swallowed hard, the street growing darker. She could no longer stay there with a lost and frozen child. Standing up, she extended her hand. "Come on, Sophie. We're going to find a warm place, okay?" Sophie grasped her fingers, trusting. Megan took her to her small apartment above a hardware store, a cramped room with a kitchenette and a shared bathroom. She turned up the heat, plugged in the kettle, and settled Sophie on a worn chair, wrapped in a soft blanket. The child was dirty, her shoes muddy, her cheeks smudged. Megan found an old t-shirt to serve as a nightgown and filled a basin with warm water. Without toys or bubbly soap, she did her best. "We're going to clean you up like a little princess," she said. Sophie let her, allowing Megan to wash her arms, untangle her curls, scrub her nails. Her gaze, filled with wonder, suggested she hadn't known such care in a long time. To relax her, Megan told a light story. "I met a dragon who loved oatmeal cookies. He flew me over a rainbow for a whole box." Sophie giggled, lighting up the room. Later, Megan gave her a mug of warm milk and tucked her into bed, wrapped in a blanket. At the Grayson residence, a modern glass and steel mansion on the outskirts of the city, silence was never soothing. Daniel Grayson, sitting at his desk, stared at a screen without seeing it, his fingers motionless on the keyboard. The clock struck midnight, another day without her. His once sharp features were gaunt, his eyes shadowed from sleepless nights, his jaw darkened with stubble. The world saw him as a business genius, but behind closed doors, Daniel was broken. Since the accident that took his wife a year earlier, he had been adrift. Since Sophie's disappearance 3 months ago, he was drowning. That day at the park, he remembered every detail, Sophie laughing as she chased pigeons, tugging at his pants for an ice cream. A call from an investor in Tokyo had distracted him for 2 minutes. When he looked up, she was gone. Police, private detectives, surveillance videos, nothing had yielded a clue. Every night, Daniel followed a ritual. He would go to Sophie's room, gently open the door as if fearing to wake her. He would sit in a white rocking chair, turn on a star-shaped nightlight, and stare at the empty bed. Her drawings, stick figures holding hands, one marked Daddy, adorned the walls. Her shoes lined up by the window, the scent of her shampoo lingering on the pillow. He would clutch her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops whispering, "I'm sorry, Sophie. I should have never looked away." The staff knew. No one touched that room, frozen as she had left it. That night, a message from a local detective changed everything. An alert. Child spotted, Maple and 6th, about 4 years old. Daniel hesitated, used to false leads. But upon opening the file, he saw a video. A young blonde woman kneeling beside a little girl. In the small police room, the neon lights buzzed above Megan, sitting on a plastic chair, holding Sophie, who clung to her like ivy. The little girl, confused and scared, clutched her sweater. Megan had done everything right, calling the police when Sophie couldn't provide an address or a phone number, calmly answering their questions. But when an officer mentioned a possible attempted abduction, her blood ran cold. 2 other officers arrived, their gazes wary. "I found her alone in front of a closed pharmacy," Megan explained for the 4th time. "She was cold, hungry, didn't know where her mother was. I couldn't leave her there." An officer noted, "You took her home?" Megan nodded, her voice trembling. She had nowhere to go. "I called as soon as I could." Before he could respond, the door opened. A man entered, tall and imposing, his gray eyes scanning the room. Daniel Grayson. His aura sucked the air out of the room, his determined stride betraying a natural authority and deep pain. Their eyes met, then he focused on Sophie, an unreadable glint in his eyes. "I'm Daniel Grayson," he said to the desk. "I was told my daughter has been found." An officer stood up. "Yes, sir. She matches the photo." "I'm taking her home now," Daniel declared. Sophie, hearing his voice, looked up. "Daddy." But she clung to Megan. The officer intervened. "She seems attached to this woman." Daniel, impassive, repeated, "She's my daughter." Megan stammered. "I didn't want to keep her. She didn't know her name. She said her mother was gone. I just wanted to help." Sophie, trembling, whispered, "Do I have to go?" Megan, throat tight, replied, "Your daddy is here. He loves you so much." Daniel, jaw clenched, knelt in front of Sophie, not forcing her, truly looking at her. Then he turned to Megan, noticing a worn diaper bag filled with essentials for Sophie, carefully prepared. His expression softened. "Thank you," he said, "for keeping her warm." Megan, moved, nodded. Daniel reached out to Sophie, who, hesitating, joined him, burying her face in his neck. As he left, he stopped near Megan. "I owe you more than I can say. You saved her." He exited, Sophie still clutching Megan's scarf. Alone, Megan stared at the door, unaware of her role in Sophie's story. IT was only just beginning. The dinner bell chimed softly, but Megan, busy cleaning a table, didn't look up immediately. It was a Tuesday morning, caught between the breakfast rush and the calm of lunch. A few regulars sipped their coffee, leafing through newspapers. Her mind wandered, constantly returning to Sophie, her sleepy voice calling her Miss Sandwich, her embrace at the police station, Daniel's words, "You saved her." When she finally looked up, she jumped. In a corner, Daniel Grayson sat, same dark coat, reserved posture, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of him. He stared out the window, his expression unreadable, as if waiting for something. As she refilled his cup, he nodded, murmuring a thank you before returning to his silence. An hour passed, then two. He remained there, untouched plate, no glance at his phone, watching the street. Megan tried to ignore the shiver in her chest. After 3 hours, he stood, placed a folded note and a business card under his cup, then left without a word. Megan waited for the door to close before reading. I owe you more than thanks. Would you consider helping Sophie, accompanying her to regain her balance? The card bore his name and a direct number. She stared at the words, her heart racing. That evening she called. The next day, she stood before the Grayson residence, an intimidating glass mansion. A guard checked her name, and Daniel opened the door himself, his face impassive but his eyes different, softer. Thank you for coming, he said. Megan nodded. I wasn't sure I should come. I wasn't sure I should ask, he admitted. A cry broke the silence. Megan. Sophie dashed down the hallway, arms outstretched, her curls bouncing. Megan knelt, embracing her. You came? Sophie exclaimed. Yes, did you miss me, little one? Megan whispered. Daniel watched silent. Days turned into weeks, and Megan found a rhythm that no longer felt borrowed. Every morning at 9 a.m., she arrived at the Grayson residence, greeted by the warm-faced housekeeper. The hallways echoed with Sophie's joyful cry, Megan. Their days began with reading, followed by puzzles, drawings, and math games. Without a teaching degree, Megan offered Sophie love, presence, and joy. In this light, Sophie flourished. Her laughter grew stronger, her nights calmed, free of nightmares. At first, Megan politely declined dinner invitations. Daniel gently insisted, and it became a routine. 3 chairs around a table once reserved for formality. Megan cooked simple dishes, grilled cheese, casseroles, melting butter rolls, making the kitchen feel less like a museum and more like a home. One evening, Daniel came home late. A plate awaited him in the oven, still warm, with a napkin folded into a rabbit and a note. Sophie mastered the alphabet today, be proud. He stared at the note, a smile beginning to form. Others followed, slipped into Sophie's lunchbox, shaped like a swan or a fox, discreet reminders that he was thinking of him. Daniel spoke little, but Megan noticed he lingered after dinner, that his voice softened while reading stories to Sophie, that his gaze no longer shied away from hers. Then Sophie fell ill, a cough, then a fever. Megan stayed, holding her hand all night, cooling her forehead, whispering stories. Daniel, anxious, watched from the doorway. At midnight, Sophie was still restless. Megan did not leave. Daniel disappeared, then left a tray outside the room. Orange juice, granola bars, a napkin shaped like a dog, and a note in his neat handwriting. For you, in case you forget to take care of yourself. Tears welled in Megan's eyes. She stayed awake until the fever broke at dawn. When she stepped out, she found Daniel sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, eyes closed, exhausted. It all began with whispers and tabloids. A blurry photo taken from across the street. Megan and Daniel walking side by side after dinner, Sophie between them, holding their hands. Then another. Megan laughing at a remark from Sophie, Daniel watching them as if the world had stopped. The headlines were not cruel, but not tender either. A mysterious woman wins the heart of the mogul. Who is the nanny tucking in the only child? Daniel brushed them aside. Megan tried, but the outside world scrutinized their haven of peace. Then came a knock at the door. On a Saturday morning, the sun filtered gently, the smell of blueberry pancakes filling the kitchen. Megan was folding Sophie's laundry when the doorbell rang. She opened it, a polite smile that faded in front of a woman with prominent cheekbones, cold eyes, and an elegant posture. You must be Megan, she said, I see. Megan nodded. And you are? Miriam, Sophie's aunt, she replied, stepping forward. Her voice hardened. I know who you are. I've read the articles, seen the photos. You think a sandwich and a few weeks of playing family give you a right to her life. Megan, throat tight, said nothing. You are not her mother, Miriam shot back, and you never will be. Megan inhaled, straightening. I'm not trying to be, nor to replace anyone. I want Sophie to feel safe, to find warmth again. That's all. Miriam was about to retort when footsteps echoed. Megan, called Sophie, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Daniel followed, observing the scene. Sophie spotted Miriam. Am Mary. Miriam softened for a moment. Hello, my dear. But Sophie walked towards Megan, took her hand, and snuggled against her, whispering, Mommy Megan, I'm tired. Can we go to my room? Silence fell. Miriam, stunned, repeated, Mommy Megan. Daniel knelt beside Sophie, looking at Miriam. She calls her that because she feels safe, not because anyone told her to. Megan has given her stability, joy, healing. Miriam looked at Sophie. Daniel, the house transformed into a home. Her anger faded, giving way to reflection. The house by the lake, painted in soft blue with white shutters, was far from the Grayson residence. Smaller, simpler, with a porch and planters filled with marigolds by Megan and Sophie, it overlooked a calm stretch of water, framed by willows and laughter. Inside, the smell of fresh bread mingled with the sounds of pages turning, pencils scribbling, and piano keys being lightly touched without purpose. A year had passed, but life seemed barely to have begun. Megan, near the screen door, wiped her hands on a dish towel, watching Daniel and Sophie build a structure of sticks and stones in the garden. Sophie's laughter echoed like a melody. Megan had never imagined this world. She still worked, but no longer at the diner. She taught reading and writing at the community center to children who reminded her of her past, quiet, yet full of potential. Daniel had supported her, funding the expansion of the center, naming a room, Clara Grayson, Room of Hope, in honor of Sophie's mother. He was also planning a school for traumatized children with a program designed with Megan. Together, they dreamed and built a sustainable future. That day marked a new beginning. In the garden, friends and family, about 30, gathered without fuss. Linen shirts, summer dresses, pitchers of lemonade, photos on folding tables, string lights dancing in the breeze. Sophie, at the center, held a velvet box, a crown of daisies in her hair, a radiant smile. When the music, a soft melody chosen by her, began, she slowly walked towards Megan, standing at the end of an improvised aisle. Megan, in an ivory dress, shone. Daniel waited for her, hands clasped, heart full. Under a willow, they exchanged simple vows. Megan promised to love Daniel with the same devotion as in her time of pain. Daniel vowed to choose her every day, just as she had chosen Sophie. Sophie presented the rings, proudly, in gold bands engraved with the word home. Megan, once seen as the waitress who gave her last sandwich, had offered much more that night, her heart. In return, she received a family. This simple gesture, born of compassion, had woven an unbreakable bond with Sophie and Daniel. Their lakeside home now vibrated with new life. Mornings opened to lively breakfasts, Sophie babbling between bites of pancakes, Daniel reading the newspaper, Megan laughing at a child's joke. Afternoons were spent gardening or painting, fingers stained with color. Evenings ended with stories read together, Sophie nestled between them. Megan had transformed the Grayson residence, then their new home, into a sanctuary of warmth. Her work at the community center thrived. She helped children find their voice, just as she had for Sophie. Daniel, inspired by her resilience, invested in social projects, including a school for traumatized children, where Megan contributed her expertise. Their collaboration strengthened their love, a love built on actions, not words. Miriam, Sophie's aunt, visited occasionally. Her visits, initially tense, softened over time. One day, she brought a photo album of her sister, sharing memories with Sophie. You look like her, she said to Megan, a hesitant smile on her face. Megan replied, I just want her to be happy. Miriam nodded, gradually accepting her place. The tabloids had quieted, replaced by admiring whispers in the town. People saw Megan not as an intruder, but as a woman who had breathed life back into a broken family. The story of Megan, Sophie, and Daniel became a local legend, a tale of love, resilience, and quiet kindness. It all began with a shared sandwich on a cold sidewalk, a gesture that seemed insignificant but transformed 3 lives. Megan, a waitress of modest means, gave Sophie more than a meal. She offered her safety and warmth, unaware that the child was the daughter of a millionaire broken by grief. Daniel Grayson, once lost in his pain, found hope through Megan's compassion. Sophie, marked by loss and abandonment, flourished under their shared love. Their lakeside home became a symbol of renewal, a place where laughter replaced silence, where wounds healed. Megan, now a teacher, inspired children to believe in themselves, just as she had done for Sophie. Daniel, with his social projects, gave back to the community what Megan had taught him, the value of small actions. Their marriage, simple and sincere, sealed a family born not of blood, but of choice. The tabloids faded, but the story persisted, whispered in diners, schools, and homes. People saw a lesson in it. A single act of kindness can change a destiny. Miriam, once hostile, became an ally, sharing memories of her sister to honor Sophie. The town, touched by their journey, supported their initiatives, from the community center to the school for traumatized children. Sophie, radiant, grew up surrounded by love, her drawings adorning the walls, her laughter filling the air. Every evening, Megan and Daniel, sitting under the stars, recalled their path, from Maple Street to this vibrant home. A sandwich, Daniel joked, and look what we built. Megan laughed. It was one heck of a sandwich.